Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my October 2024 reading review. It's basically a wrap-up. I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in October, and let me tell you, I read a lot of books in October. I'm really surprised. I was only supposed to do like 9 or 10 books in October, and I did 13. Technically, one of the books, I read like 400 pages of it in October, and then the last 100 pages on November 1st, but it worked out well that I'm just including it in the October reading review. But I had a great reading month. There were some not so great books on the list, and there were some great all-timer books on the list. And in fact, because this month was such a good reading month, I'm actually going to have 2 books for Book of the Month, because it was that good of a month. So, one on my list, I have, if we're talking about out of 5, traditionally when I review a book, my traditional rating is, I say like, this is a out of 10. But for my reading review, I give you like the Goodreads version. How many stars did I give it out of 5? And so, I gave 2 books 2 stars out of 5. I gave 2 books 3 stars out of 5. I gave 5 books 4 stars, and then I gave 4 books 5 stars. So I had it was all over the place, but it was a very good month overall. So let's start out with the worst of the month, and it's unfortunate that I have to say this because it gives me no pleasure to say this, but my weakest book I read this month was Star Wars Mace Windu: The Glass Abyss. This is a new release, one of several new releases. I think I did 6 new releases this month. And I'm just sorry to say it was not a good book. The book, I'll go into full detail in my full review of the book, but basically this book is just, it's just too weird sci-fi. It's not enough Star Wars in it. It's really just letting Stephen Barnes write weird sci-fi, and it doesn't really feel like Mace Windu. So this book was a 2 out of 5. I really didn't enjoy it. I'm sorry to those who did or who were excited that they were getting a EU author back, but I didn't care for it. My only other 2-star book kind of surprised me, but also kind of didn't. And that was a John Grisham book, who is one of my favorite authors, but this is by far my least favorite book of his, and that is Bleachers. Before this, every book he's written was great. Books, short books, long books, medium-sized books, books about legal stuff, books about football, books about, whatever topic, John Grisham can write a good book. And so I was disappointed that this one was so bad. It's not that it's short, because he wrote Playing for Pizza, which is also incredibly short and is fantastic. The problem with this book is there's no plot. There's like no plot with this book. It was so boring. The only people I would recommend this to is like hardcore sports people, or if you are a family member of a hardcore sports person, you might appreciate some of the story in this book. But yeah, this was not a good book. So those are only 2 books that I disliked. Those books. Those were the 2 I disliked this month. Let's get into the ones that I thought they were fine. They were okay. I have 2 3-star books. The first one I'll talk about is the Stone and Sky Preludes collection by Z.S. Diamante. Z.S. Diamante wrote a trilogy called the Stone and Sky Trilogy. I read the first book, and you'll see that a little bit in a few minutes. But this is a Preludes collection. It's a couple of short stories set in his Stone and Sky universe. It's mostly letting you get to know some of the characters. And I completely understand what Z.S. Diamante was going for here, but the book kind of just fell flat. I didn't care for the characters. I didn't feel like this added a lot. There were a few cool moments through this that I was like, oh, that was a cool concept. That was a cool idea for this character. But as a whole, I don't remember too much. And I only read this, this month. And it's about 147 pages. And it felt really just, it wasn't needed for the story. These could have been integrated. These stories could have been integrated somehow, or been maybe chapters or something. Or maybe he says that some of these were just cut for time, cut in the pages, and it makes sense why. It makes sense why these weren't part of the actual trilogy. But you'll see, I liked the first novel, a little bit better than that. So that was a 3-star book. Another 3-star book, and I'm kind of disappointed that it was a 3-star book, is It Will Only Hurt a Moment. I enjoyed the book, but not as much as I've enjoyed some of Delilah Dawson's other books, including her other thriller, The Violence, which is one of my favorite horror thriller books, and really just sold me on being not only a fan of Delilah's Star Wars stuff, but her non-Star Wars stuff. And so this was a new release this month, went out to buy it on release day, and it just was okay. It was fine. It had some cool mystery to it. It had some cool vibes, but it just doesn't hold a candle to The Violence. If you're looking for a Delilah Dawson novel to read The Violence. That is a quality book. All right, so those are the 2 books that I didn't like and the 2 books that were fine, but now we're getting into these were pretty good books. I really enjoyed these. And I have 5 4-star books, and I am really happy with these. And so let's start with the first one on the list, which is Stone and Sky by Z.S. Diamante. Yes, I just talked about the Preludes collection for this book, and now I'm going to talk about this book, which I love these covers, gorgeous covers. But this book is an old school fantasy book. Even though it came out in 2023, it feels like it could have come out in 1977, like when Sword of Shannara came out. If this book had been published with an old Sword of Shannara type cover and was by a major publisher back then, if you had designed it to look like that, I would have thought that it was a 1977 type book, because it just felt like the Sword of Shannara era of fantasy, the late 70s to mid 80s, that style, and it just worked. It is a fun adventure. It is a very tropey adventure, which I really liked. The story was nothing incredible. The characters were a little bit flat, but that's okay because it was about the adventure, the fun of it. And I am looking forward to getting books 2 and 3, which I anticipate getting very soon, and reading them sometime in 2025. So that is Stone and Sky, which I did give 4 out of 5 stars. I also read this month the book Strange New Worlds, Asylum by Una McCormick. Now, Gallery sent me this book because I am part of the Literary Treks podcast, and I do the podcast where we interview authors, and we try to get the reviews up before the book comes out so people can talk about it. And so they sent all of us on the podcast the book to read, and I got it, and I really enjoyed it. It is a very ripped from the headline story. The refugee plot line in here is very similar to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict in the Middle East. But it is still a really entertaining story between Una Chin Riley and Pike. And it talks about their time both in the Academy and also their time on the Enterprise during the show, Strange New Worlds. And it's a really short read, too. So I did quite enjoy this one. I did quite enjoy it. My interview with Una should be out in the next week or so. That'll be an audio only through the Literary Treks podcast. The next book that I really enjoyed this month, which is a book I'm surprised, but happy that I enjoyed it, is Stephen King's Misery. After 2 Stephen King books that I read, did not enjoy it, really did not enjoy The Gunslinger, I thought, hey, 3rd time's the charm, maybe? And it was, because Misery is a great book. And it was so entertaining. It was just the right book for me at just the right time. Stephen King he finally turned in a book I really loved, and I'm really excited to get into more Stephen King books. I still gave it an 8 out of 10, so it's not like it was an amazing read, but it was very entertaining, and I felt it was worth my time, and I felt that he stuck the landing on it, and I felt like he made it worth my time. So that is why Misery was a 4 out of 5 stars, so I really enjoyed this one. I also read the penultimate book in the Fablehaven series, titled Fablehaven: Secrets of the Dragon's Sanctuary, which I really enjoyed this one as well. This is the book that I read most of it like on October 31st, and then I read just the very last 100 pages on November 1st. But I'm counting it in the October reading review. And this book, by the way, another gorgeous cover. And this book is quite hard-hitting at the end. The beginning and the end really work. The middle is okay. But what makes this book work is the twist, which I can say I did not like the twist. I also respect it. Here's an example of this is not where I wanted the story to go, but man, did Brandon Mull pull it off. I respect him for the choices he made here, and I think he did a very good job. I think it is the weakest of the Fablehaven series that I've read so far. Of the 4 books, this is the weakest, and it's still a really good book. Shows you how good of an author Brandon Mull is. So I really enjoyed this. The last of my 4-star books, which is, I would say, the best of the 4-star books, is Ben Bova's Far Side. But I read this while in an airplane, and it was the perfect book to read in an airplane because this book is all about space and specifically about the moon. And anyway, I'm a huge Ben Bova fan. This is not his strongest book by a lot, and this is a controversial book because he makes some really questionable decisions. I think I figured out where he was going with those things, and so I really liked the controversy. I really liked that he was approaching it from that direction, but I understand that people are not gonna get this is like when critics are like, you just don't understand the artist's vision, man, and the audience is like, the audience didn't like it, man. I feel like the critic this time because I'm like, I get his vision, I understand his artistic vision with where he's going, but I can totally understand that most people would not. And I do have a full review. By the way, all of these books, if they don't have the review currently out, they will have a review. Every single book I read, I review. Fiction, that is. I don't review all my nonfiction reads, but I do review all my fiction reads. So if you are interested in any of these, look for the review, and if the review's not up yet, it means it's going to come up soon, within the next month. So the next category is my 5-star category, and I had some great 5-star books in this category. I really enjoyed what I read in this category, and it's got, boy, does it have a variety of genres coming up. So the first book I'll talk about is Star Trek Voyager: The Nanotech War. Voyager is my favorite Star Trek series, and you have to do a really good job to earn a 5-star review because you have to make it a really worth my time book, and this book was worth the time. It is a great Voyager adventure. It is kind of the best of both worlds. It is set during the run of the show, so you kind of have an expectation of what will happen and what won't happen. But at the same time, it wasn't written while the show was on, so the author could go a little bit more in depth, and he knew where the show was going, and so he was able to kind of foreshadow some things and handle the characters well. And so this book was just a great book. Great if you like 7 of 9 and Tom Paris. There's a reason that they are on the cover. And I think that Tom's storyline with B'Elanna is just incredibly strong. I think Tom's storyline with B'Elanna here was what sold it for me. I loved this book. And that's why I got 5 out of 5. Another book that was a 5 out of 5 that I read this month is another new release, and that was Shadow of the Smoking Mountain by Howard Andrew Jones. Howard is one of my favorite fantasy authors right now. He's writing this sword and sorcery series called the Chronicles of Hanovar. Howard, unfortunately, has been diagnosed with brain cancer, but we do have this third book, which was really entertaining. Again, kind of like with what I said about Fablehaven, this is, I think, the weakest of the Hanovar books, and it's still really, really good. And I really enjoyed what Howard turned in here. And I think that he just has a way of writing these characters, and he made me feel for the minor characters. This is the book where I've connected the least with the main character of Hanovar and the most with the minor characters. Whereas in the first 2 books, I just connected with Hanovar. So I thought he did a great job with the characters in this book. And I'm curious to see what happens in this world next. All right, so I made a decision at the beginning of the video, which might be controversial. I'm going to do 2 books of the month. And that is because I feel like these are both amazing, pretty much equally worthy books. And also because I read 13 books. I think you'll let me choose 2 books of the month. I know readers who, book reviewers who do like 4 or 5 a month and they choose 1. So I read twice or 3 times as many. So anyway, the first book of the month I'll talk about, so just note that these are both like equally amazing books. But the first one I'll talk about is Batman Resurrection by John Jackson Miller. This is a new release this month. This is set in the Batman 1989 universe. That's why they use this logo. It is set immediately after the events of Batman 1989, and it is an amazing book of tie-in fiction. John Jackson Miller is one of my favorite authors of all time. He's been there. He was one of my first great reads that I just started saying I'm going to read everything he writes, and it's been worth it. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this is one of his best books. It's in his top 5 best books. It is an incredible work of media tie-in fiction, and it also has some incredible crime storytelling and just some fun Batman story. And I don't even care about Batman, the 1989 version, and I really enjoyed this book. And the twists in here are great. The foreshadowing, the imagery, the questions asked. This is a great book, and it is totally deserving of the Book of the Month title. And he already announced Random House Worlds, who published the book, is giving him a sequel that's coming out next year. It's called Batman Revolution. And so I'm really excited to see where he goes with this series. All right. And my second book of the month, because, again, these 2 books were that good, this book was the most shocking. I did not realize I would enjoy this book as much. I read a book by this author that he co-wrote with Larry Correia last month from the Monster Hunter International series, and I loved it. But then I read this book. This was another book I read on the airplane in a day. It was amazing, and that is Mountain of Fire by Jason Cordova, another new release. I mean, just look at that cover. Just look at that cover. This is, like Batman, I say these are 2 top books of the year for me. They'll probably be in my top 10 of the year. Mountain of Fire is a zombie book, but it's a zombie apocalypse, and it's basically zombies versus Catholic schoolgirls. And one of my friends was like, does that mean it's a dirty book? No, it's an appropriate book. It is literally about Catholic schoolgirls who are up in this school up in the mountains, and all the adults die except for one, and so they're all having to fight against the zombies and try to survive, and it's a post-apocalyptic, story, not a post-apocalyptic, an apocalyptic storytelling, and it is just incredible. It is a quick read. Every page felt like it was adding to the story, adding to the characters, adding to the plot. It never felt wasted. It felt like it was moving along. I had one tiny criticism of the book, just one, and even with that, that's more of a taste issue than it was a actual criticism of the book. It was more of a, I would have preferred you to go in this direction, you decided to go in this direction. Other than that, it's an amazing book, and it makes me excited to read more zombie fiction, and it makes me excited to read more Jason Cordova books, and this is a home run of a book, just like Batman Resurrection is another home run of a book. So that is my entire reading review for the month of October. I cannot believe I read 13 books. That is way more than I thought I would do. I'm so happy with it. November, I got some pretty big chunkers. I've got some pretty small books. Maybe I'll do 12 or 13. Maybe I'll just do 10. We'll see. But whatever the case, I'm excited for the future of my reading. And so if you've read any of these books, let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Let me know which ones you enjoyed, which ones you didn't enjoy, all that stuff. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.